All right, so we are ready to dive into AI, but not in the way you might expect.
Yeah.
All those bits and bytes and algorithms and such.
Yeah.
You sent us a ton of research on what people actually think about AI.
Right.
And that's where we're going with this deep dive.
I think it's a really crucial perspective, you know? We can talk about the technical stuff all day, but like at the end of the day, AI's impact really depends on how people perceive it, how they interact with it, you know?
Absolutely. We've got reports, surveys. We even took a peek into social media to kind of get that sense of, the pulse, what people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're holding up a mirror to society
Yeah.
as AI, really starts to enter the picture.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that that reflection is surprisingly diverse. I think it's easy to sort of fall into this trap of thinking like, oh, everyone is either terrified or thrilled by AI.
Yeah.
But the reality is much more nuanced than that.
So let's start with like the basics then. Are we all even on the same page about what AI even is?
Yeah.
Some of this research is suggesting that maybe we're not.
Yeah, definitely. I think awareness of AI is growing, no doubt. Things like ChatGPT hitting the mainstream have probably contributed to that. But, one study from the UK found that a full quarter of people still equate AI with robots.
Wow, a quarter.
Yeah.
That's a lot higher than I would guessed.
Yeah, and it raises some really interesting questions like, are people forming opinions based on what AI can actually do, or are they reacting more to the hype,
Right.
to the way it's portrayed in the media? Because there is a pretty big difference between, recognizing the term AI
Right.
and actually understanding, the implications of it.
Okay, so awareness is one thing. Understanding might be lagging behind a little bit. What about the general mood, though? Are people feeling, optimistic about AI's role in society, or are we leaning more towards the pessimistic side?
It's really a mixed bag, which honestly makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
You've got Americans expressing more concern than excitement about AI's growing influence. And then over in the UK, there's like a definite tilt towards pessimism about its impact on society.
So location plays a role, but it sounds like it's more complicated than just geography.
Oh, for sure. The research shows that like a lot of people, regardless of where they live, hold both positive and negative views at the same time.
Interesting.
They're intrigued by the possibilities, but also a little uneasy about the potential downsides.
Right. It's not black and white.
Not at all. No.
It's kind of like we're cautiously optimistic with a
Yeah.
big dose of wait and see thrown in.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of potential downsides, what are people most worried about when it comes to AI?
I think job displacement is a huge one, particularly in the UK.
Oh, yeah.
That fear of robots taking our jobs. It's not just a sci-fi trope anymore.
Right.
People are seeing automation happening in real time and they're concerned about their livelihoods. Understandably so.
Yeah, it's a very real and immediate anxiety for a lot of folks.
What about other risks, though? I mean, job displacement is one thing, but...
Yeah, well, the misuse of AI is another major concern that comes up a lot.
And that's worldwide,
Yeah.
Think about things like deepfakes being used to manipulate elections or
Right.
to create false narratives or the development of autonomous weapons that could operate without any human oversight.
It's not just about AI taking our jobs.
Right.
It's about AI being weaponized against us.
Exactly. And then you've got concerns about algorithmic bias,
Right.
where AI systems perpetuate existing societal prejudices, which leads to unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the whole issue of privacy violations with AI being used for surveillance and data collection in ways that people find really intrusive.
So it sounds like the potential for harm, it kind of extends to all these different areas of our lives.
Yeah.
Are those anxieties about bias and privacy, are they kind of on par with those concerns about job displacement and misuse, or are they seen as less immediate threats?
I'd say there's a hierarchy of fears.
Okay.
Job displacement and misuse, they often top the list. Maybe because they feel more tangible and immediate. Concerns about things like existential risks. The idea of superintelligent AI surpassing human control.
Mm-hmm.
Those are out there,
Right.
but they don't seem to be front and center for most people yet.
It makes you wonder if those bigger, more abstract risks will start to feel more pressing as AI continues to develop.
It's certainly possible. The more AI becomes integrated into our daily lives,
Right.
the more we'll probably grapple with those deeper questions about its long-term implications.
So we've got this mix of excitement and anxiety. People are understandably worried about the potential downsides of AI. Does it translate into like a desire for more regulation, more oversight?
Oh, absolutely. One thing that's really consistent across most of the research is this strong global desire for AI regulation.
Okay.
People don't want to see like a Wild West scenario where AI development is just completely unchecked.
Which makes sense. We have rules and regulations for just about everything else.
Right. And AI is arguably, more powerful and pervasive than many of the technologies we've regulated in the past.
So the public is saying, we want some guardrails here.
Mm.
But who do they trust to put those guardrails in place?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right.
And it's where things get even more complicated because there's a significant lack of trust in both tech companies and governments to regulate AI effectively.
So we don't want a free-for-all, but we don't trust the usual suspects to set the rules either. What's the alternative? Where do people think this responsibility should lie?
There's a growing sentiment that independent experts, people who are knowledgeable about AI but free from the influence of corporate profits or political agendas might be the best bet. It's like a desire for neutral, informed decision-making when it comes to something as potentially impactful as AI.
All right. So we've got a public that's increasingly aware of AI, but with, a real mix of feelings about its role in society. They want regulation, but they're not sure who to trust with that responsibility. How does this all play out when we look at specific applications of AI? Do people's opinions kind of change depending on how the technology is being used?
This is where things get really interesting because there's this fascinating disconnect between public opinion and the views of a lot of AI experts when it comes to specific applications.
Really? Give me some examples.
Yeah.
What kinds of uses are people raising eyebrows at?
Well, take facial recognition technology used in law enforcement.
Yeah.
It's an area that's been heavily criticized by many AI ethicists due to, concerns about bias and privacy violations. But surprisingly, it enjoys a decent level of public support.
That is unexpected. So the stuff that some AI folks are most worried about the public's relatively okay with.
Yeah.
Is it ever the other way around, where experts are more comfortable with an application than the general public?
Yeah, absolutely. A great example is self-driving cars.
Okay.
Many in the AI field see them as a potential solution to traffic accidents congestion.
Right.
But the public is much more hesitant.
Interesting.
There's a higher level of skepticism about, handing over control to an AI, even if statistically it might be the safer option.
It really highlights the importance of understanding those nuances in public perception. It's not always aligned with expert opinion, and certainly not a monolithic pro-AI or anti-AI stance.
Right. It varies depending on the specific use case, the perceived risks and benefits, and a whole host of other factors.
Okay, so we've established that the public is a bit wary of AI overall, but seems to have more nuanced views depending on the specific application. Are there other factors that play a role in shaping these opinions, like age or political leanings?
Absolutely. We're seeing some interesting trends emerge along those lines.
Like what? Fill me in.
Well, for instance, younger generations tend to be more optimistic about AI, and they're also bigger users of AI technologies.
Which makes sense.
Right. They've grown up with it.
Exactly. It's less of a foreign concept for them. And when it comes to political leanings, well, it's not as straightforward as you might think.
Meaning it's not as simple as all liberals think this and all conservatives think that. Exactly. It's more nuanced. There's some evidence in the U.S., for example, suggesting that Republicans are more concerned about AI's impact on everyday life, while Democrats might be more open to its potential. But again, those are just broad trends, and individual views can vary significantly within those groups.
Right. We need to be careful about making generalizations.
Absolutely. And there's one more crucial insight that really stood out to me in the research. People who have a better understanding of how AI actually works tend to be more optimistic about its potential.
Okay.
However, they're also more likely to express concerns about specific risks.
Interesting.
Which suggests they're not blindly optimistic, but rather informed and discerning in their views.
Right, they're thinking critically about it.
Exactly. They're not just swayed by the hype.
So knowledge is power, even when it comes to AI. It helps people see the nuances, both the good and the bad. It sounds like public opinion on AI is a constantly evolving landscape influenced by this whole web of factors.
Precisely. And to complicate matters further, we have very little longitudinal data to track how those opinions are changing over time.
Right. It's all happening so fast.
It is. It's like trying to map a moving target.
So how do we even begin to make sense of this swirling sea of perceptions, anxieties, hopes, and, evolving knowledge? What does it all mean for those of us navigating the world of AI?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the key takeaway is we can't develop and deploy AI in a vacuum. Understanding public sentiment is crucial not just for ethical reasons, but for practical ones, too.
Yeah, it's like if people don't trust AI, it doesn't really matter how technically brilliant it is.
Yeah.
It's not going to go very far.
Exactly. Building public trust requires open communication,
Yeah.
addressing concerns head on and ensuring that AI benefits society as a whole, not just a select few.
So we need to bring the public along on this journey. No more black box AI. We need transparency, accountability, and like a genuine effort to understand and address people's hopes and fears.
I couldn't agree more. The future of AI depends not just on algorithms, but on building a shared understanding and a vision for how this technology can be used ethically and effectively.
And that's a conversation that needs to involve everyone, not just the experts. Speaking of conversations, one thing that keeps coming up for me is how public attitudes might shift as AI becomes even more woven into our lives.
Yeah.
That feels like a huge unknown.
It is a critical point. I think we're dealing with a moving target here. People's opinions are going to evolve as they gain more experience with AI, both positive and negative.
Right. What if we have a major AI breakthrough, something that blows everyone's minds? Would that tip the scales towards more optimism, do you think?
It's certainly possible. We've seen it happen with other technologies. Think about the early days of the internet. A lot of skepticism, even fear. But as people started to experience its benefits firsthand, those fears subsided, and now it's an integral part of our lives.
So maybe we just need that killer app for AI, something that everyone can use and appreciate. That aha moment where it clicks how beneficial AI can be.
Maybe. Or it could be a series of smaller advancements that gradually reshape our perceptions. But what's equally interesting is the potential for negative events to shape public opinion as well.
Okay, let's go there.
Yeah.
What if there's a major AI mishap? Like a self-driving car accident with a high casualty count, or an AI system that makes a discriminatory decision with really serious consequences.
Those kinds of events could definitely trigger a backlash. You could see increased calls for regulation, maybe even outright bans on certain AI applications.
It's like that classic sci-fi trope, the AI that goes rogue and turns on humanity.
Mm.
Those stories tap into our deepest fears about technology, and they can have a real impact on public perception.
Absolutely. Fiction can be a powerful shaper of beliefs, especially when it comes to new and unfamiliar technologies.
It makes you wonder how much of our current AI anxiety is rooted in those cultural narratives. We've been primed to fear AI for decades, through movies and books.
That's a great point. It's hard to disentangle our rational fears from those cultural influences.
And then there's the whole trust issue. We talked earlier about the low levels of trust in tech companies and governments to regulate AI. But what if that trust erodes even further? What if we see a series of high-profile data breaches or algorithms that are demonstrably biased even after we've put regulations in place?
That could lead to a scenario where public opinion hardens against AI, making it incredibly difficult to move forward with development and deployment, even for applications that could have tremendous social benefits.
So it's almost like a social contract with AI. If the trust is broken, the whole thing falls apart.
Exactly. It's not just about the technology itself. It's about building and maintaining public trust, transparency, and a sense of shared ownership. People need to feel like they have a voice in how this technology is developed and used.
Which brings us right back to that crucial need for regulation and oversight. We need systems in place that can adapt to the changing landscape of AI, address public concerns, and ensure that AI is developed and deployed in a way that benefits humanity as a whole.
I completely agree. And those systems need to be flexible because AI is evolving at such an incredible pace.
It's like trying to hit a moving target. The regulations we put in place today might be obsolete tomorrow.
Which is why ongoing dialogue and collaboration are so important. We need policymakers, researchers, industry leaders, and the public all working together, constantly assessing the risks and benefits, adapting our approach, and making sure that AI remains a tool for good, not a force for harm.
That's a tall order, but it feels essential. We can't afford to be complacent. AI has the potential to reshape our world in profound ways, and we need to make sure that those changes are positive, not destructive.
Well said. The future of AI isn't predetermined. It's being shaped right now by the choices we make, the conversations we have, and the values we prioritize.
And that's something we all need to be part of. Public opinion matters. Our voices matter. We need to engage in this conversation and help steer AI towards a future that benefits everyone. Speaking of voices, we haven't talked much about how these public opinions are actually being gathered. Are we just talking traditional surveys and polls, or are researchers exploring other avenues?
Surveys are definitely valuable, but they only capture a snapshot in time. To get a richer understanding of how people feel about AI, researchers are increasingly turning to more qualitative methods. It's about getting beyond the numbers and really digging into the why behind people's
I
opinions.
like that. So what are some of these alternative methods? Give us the inside scoop.
One approach is using focus groups. This allows people to discuss their thoughts and feelings about AI in a more open and conversational setting. It can reveal deeper insights and uncover underlying beliefs and concerns that might not surface in a structured survey.
I can see how that would be valuable. It's like getting beyond the multiple choice answers and really hearing people's stories and experiences.
Exactly. And then there are participatory and deliberative methods like mini publics and citizen assemblies. These involve bringing together randomly selected groups of people to learn about AI and deliberate on its implications. It's a way to create a more informed and engaged public and to gather insights from a diverse range of perspectives. It's like creating a microcosm of society to grapple with these big questions.
That's fascinating. It's a way to move beyond just collecting opinions and actually get people actively thinking about AI and its role in their lives.
It is. It's about fostering a sense of collective ownership and responsibility when it comes to shaping the future of AI.
And what about social media? It feels like a constant barometer of public sentiment, especially on hot-button topics like AI. Are researchers tapping into that data stream?
Definitely. Analyzing social media content is becoming a key tool for understanding public opinion on AI. Researchers are using natural language processing and machine learning to track trends, identify key themes, and measure the overall tone of conversations about AI.
So we're not just looking at polls and surveys anymore. We're analyzing tweets, forum posts, even comments on news articles to get a real-time pulse of public opinion on AI. It's like having a global focus group happening 24/7.
Exactly. Social media provides this incredible window into the collective consciousness, and researchers are getting increasingly sophisticated in their ability to analyze and interpret that data.
It sounds like there's a real push to move beyond those traditional research methods and get a more nuanced, multidimensional view of public sentiment.
It's essential. We need to use every tool at our disposal to understand this complex and ever-changing landscape.
But then how do we make sense of all this data? It feels like a fire hose of information coming from all these different directions.
That's the challenge, isn't it? Researchers are developing new tools and frameworks to help analyze and synthesize all of this data, to identify patterns and trends, and to extract meaningful insights. They're also looking for ways to integrate quantitative data from surveys with qualitative data from things like focus groups and social media analysis to create a more holistic understanding of public sentiment.
So it's not just about collecting data. It's about making that data useful, about turning it into actionable insights that can inform policy guide development and shape the future of AI in a responsible and beneficial way.
Exactly. Goal is to move beyond simply measuring public opinion to actually understanding it and using that understanding to create a future where AI truly serves humanity.
And that feels like a mission worth pursuing. We need to move beyond the hype and the fear to engage in open and honest conversations and to work together to shape an AI-powered future that reflects our shared values and aspirations.
Couldn't agree more. The future of AI isn't written in code. It's being written by all of us right now, through our actions, our choices, and our conversations.
And speaking of shaping the future, there's one resource you mentioned that I want to hear more about, something called the AI Share Database.
Ah, yes. The AI Survey Hub for Attitudes and Research Exchange, or AI Share for short. It's a game changer, really.
Okay, tell me more. What makes it so special?
Well, it's this massive database that pulls together thousands of survey questions about AI attitudes from all this academic research reports. It's like a central repository for all the questions researchers are asking about public opinion on AI.
So instead of every research team starting from scratch, they can tap into this shared resource and build on each other's work.
Exactly. It allows for more standardized measurement, which makes it much easier to compare results across different studies and track trends over time.
That's brilliant. It feels like we're finally starting to get a handle on this complex and rapidly evolving topic.
We are. And as we gather more data, we can start to ask even deeper questions. For example, how do people's actual experiences with AI shape their attitudes? How do those attitudes translate into political behavior like voting or activism? And what are the long-term societal implications of AI, both positive and negative?
So many questions. But it feels like we're finally equipped to start finding some answers.
We are. And that's incredibly exciting. The future of AI isn't just about technological advancements. It's about understanding ourselves, our values, and how we want to shape the world we live in.
Well said. And that's a conversation we all need to be a part of.
Absolutely. We need diverse voices, critical perspectives, and a willingness to engage in open and honest dialogue. The future of AI is too important to be left to chance.
So to wrap things up, what's the one thing you want our listener to walk away with from this deep dive into public opinion on AI?
I think this AI is more than just algorithms and code. It's a mirror reflecting our hopes and fears, our aspirations and anxieties. Understanding public sentiment is crucial not just for building trust in AI, but for shaping its development and deployment in a way that benefits humanity.
I love that AI is a mirror. It forces us to look inward and ask some tough questions about ourselves and the kind of future we want to create.
Exactly. And the good news is we have the tools and the data to start having those conversations, to make informed decisions, and to navigate the uncharted territory of AI with both caution and optimism.
This has been a fascinating and thought-provoking journey. It's clear that the conversation around AI is just beginning, and public opinion will play a crucial role in shaping what comes next.
I couldn't agree more. And I, for one, am excited to see what the future holds.
Me too. And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you'll continue to explore the fascinating world of AI and its impact on society. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.